Welcome to the Ohio Fly Tying Guild. I'm Gary Begley, and got two patterns planned this evening. First one is going to be a Skip Morse pattern called Skip Nymph, and I'll show you what that looks like right now. There we go. Could probably get a little closer. Kind of, in my opinion, kind of a cross between a gold rib hare's ear and a pheasant tail nymph. Standard nymph hook or 1x long. I'm going to use 1x long. Standard nymph pattern, but it's constructed a little differently, which I'll show you here as we go. My thread base down to the barb, or it's the end of the hook shank, however you want to say it. And I've got some copper wire I'm going to use. The size, of course, is going to depend on the size of hook. I'm using small, I believe. Yeah, small for this size 12. Keep this wire down on the bottom of the hook shank, I should say. Now, we're going to dub the body without putting a tail on. Like I said, it's constructed a little differently. A lot of guard hairs in this study. A lot of guard hairs for hare's ear. I like to add dubbing before I run out, so I'm not wrapping bare thread through my dubbing. I'm going to keep my thread up on top of the dubbing. I'm going to get some pheasant tail barbs. I'm going to get about 6 or 8, depending on the size, over so the tips are lined up. I like to cut these off with a racus as opposed to ripping them off. Right now, tail, I want about half the hook shank length. And I'm going to bind this down temporarily with the thread on top. 2 soft turns just to get the material on there. I want to wrap the wire, counter wrap the wire, I should say. And the wire is actually what's going to bind down what they refer to as the body of this fly. Now I use my utility scissors to cut the extra wire off as opposed to helicoptering. The fibers up. Now these pheasant tail fibers were or barbs, I should say, were the tail, back of the fly, and it's going to be a wing case now. We'll go back to a little bit of dubbing. Thorax built up. I'll go a little bit more dubbing. Thorax is generally a lot larger diameter than the abdomen. Fold this over now. I'm going to spin the thread counterclockwise so it'll jump back and it should roll right off or lay right off my thumbnail. So I can come straight down, bind that down. Bug up the thorax area. My Velcro on a popsicle stick.
I noticed you used the same dubbing for the thorax as for the body. Is that, well, I assume that's part of the skip's direction or whatever.
Yeah, yep, it is. The same dubbing for the abdomen and the thorax. A lot of times the patterns will state that, and I like it that better that way. When I break my own dubbing, I usually do it that way. I add the way I'm speaking of now is the abdomen is usually lighter and the thorax is a little bit darker.
Yeah.
But yeah, his pattern doesn't differentiate between. It made it easier on me, so I stick with it.
Yeah.
All right. So there's the second pattern. A beadhead green rockworm. But anyway, it looks like a great little pattern because the green body, and it's supposed to be nice bright green like that. And it's tied with Krystal Flash. 6 strands of Krystal Flash. Twisted together. What I use peacock / pearl, and it seems to work well. Might not be the most durable body, but of course you could always put a little bit of UV on there if you were worried about it. And this again is a very simple pattern. Size 12. And this larger bead probably wouldn't be a problem to do it, not need to do it this way. I want to show you the way I do it, especially the smaller ones. It's an 1/8 inch cyclops bead eye. And what it can do is with my beadzers, they're tweezers, but they're called beadzers because they're made specifically to work with beads. I think you guys can see the little indentation in there. The other side, there's one to match, so you can grab a bead and it stays on there instead of shooting across the room. So there's the large hole of bead, and there's the smaller hole. You can put that on there, like so. It stays. Now, word of caution, don't just grab it by the hook eye. If you're like me, you'll end up losing the bead. I grab it right here, so I can trap the bead on there. 15 thousandths lead wire, about 8 or 10 wraps, and we're going to wait and talk and count at the same time. That could have turned out bad. Um, Two things. It's going to add more weight, of course, but it's also going to, when I shove it up inside the bead, it'll stabilize the bead a little better. Way up inside the bead, like so. Now we go to thread. A little bit of a dam here to keep the lead forward. We'll round the hook in pretty far. Around to where it starts back down. I angled my vise, turned my vise slightly so the thread won't fall down off the hill. Take another rep right there. Now, like I promised, 6 strands of Krystal Flash. At the ends so they're flush. Twist. I think this is going to, it'd be easier to miss the hook point if I invert the hook. Keep them twisted. Turn in front of thread. Now I keep it inverted. That'll help me avoid cutting my thread off. I can always stop it, but it helps. Now next we've got some pattern calls for pine squirrel body dubbing, which I've got some here that I previously raked from a hide. You don't need a lot, but I want a little bit more than what I've got. It's going to be in a collar and provide some bugginess, I'll say. That's essentially the fly. And I'll get my popsicle stick back out. Get things a little buggier. So there's that pattern. Questions, comments? And let's see, I got a question. Kathy wants to know if we could put UV to help durability of the body. And yes, you absolutely could. No question. A real thin coat. I would use the thin stuff and put a real thin coat and hit with a light. Would make it much more durable. Frankly, that's a good suggestion, Kathy.
Would work. What other colors of flash would work with that if you wanted to do other ones just like that?
Well, it depends on if you could use any color you want, of course. This pattern is trying to imitate a green rockworm. So
Okay.
the green's going to be good for it. Probably what comes to my mind is red.
Gary, if I was going to put UV coating on it, I would put the UV on the body before I put the collar. And then after you flash it, then do the collar. It makes it easier and it won't iron out any of the dubbing collar.
All right.
That makes
Good,
sense.
good suggestion. Thanks.
No idea on that.
You guys ever fish those little bitty patterns like that? Well, that's not real little. It's size 12. 12 and down is what the pattern suggests.
We fish those tiny ones at Henry's Fork.
Well, the fish were only 2 inches long.
Yeah,
So.
and the fish kept going through my net. They were so tiny, but you had to use something that tiny because the little mouths were so tiny.
Yeah. Yep.
I
Where were you fishing?
Henry's Fork in Idaho.
Oh, okay. Al probably knows all about Henry's Fork. Yep.
We evidently found the nursery.
Yeah. They couldn't quite get their mouth around the 16. But they were trying.
All right. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
No, thanks a lot, Gary. I appreciate it.
Yep. You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Good program, Gary. Thank you.
I'll come up with something a little more difficult next month. So
Uh-oh.
Oh, I don't know.
we'll hang around a little more.
I like these just fine.
Yeah.
You like
Yeah.
these fine?
Yeah, simpler the better for the fish.
Well,
Quick to tie and easy to fly fish.
yeah, there's a couple advantages come to my mind. They're quick to tie, so you can get plenty of them tied for your box,
Yeah.
and you're not quite as heartbroken if you lose one in the tree in the back cast.
Yeah.
If you spend a lot of time on it and got a lot of different material.
Well, the big ones just breaks you off.
Yep.
All right.
All right, game.
Well, those are good ones. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Gary.
Gary.
Will you give this a try?
Very welcome.
Red.
Thank you guys for showing up.
Yep. Thanks, Gary.